Here's 78, 77 and a half, $8, 78 to the bid, don't have it, get down, have it, don't have it, get down, 79, now 9, now 9, now how, 79 and a half, 80, don't have it, get 80, 50, down 1 to the 84, to the bid, down, beer, don't 81 now how, now 2, down to the 82, don't have it, get down, have it, get down, 3, but get down to the...
Huh? So imagine you wake up in the morning and that's how people are talking. Imagine that you need to recite that. Like you woke up from, just got up here and people are just, it sounds like babbling. It's just a Babylon of nonsense. And it's funny enough, they sell cattle and there's a lot of ways to play with that, the way that I explain language and the tricks of the language and what's going on this planet and this plane. So part of the reason for the reorganization of the information that I'm putting out is to slow down the words so that we can, so people that don't really understand what I'm saying, because I usually talk from a point of reference that's far in the future, far beyond what most people can comprehend. That, I mean, yeah, in a lot of my videos, people have noticed, like, I will slow it down and I will show people whether it's numbers or letters or some other aspect of the human body or the dream world or maybe how nutrition works. I try to slow those down, but for everyone, and this isn't, because I've been on this little kick here of how it is that high functioning or even very highly intelligent autistic children understand, see, and view the world, and the place they come from as what I would call they come from the future, and they're traveling back in the past to explain things to people, to show people things, but they can't, because what's happening and the way that they see the world, where they come from, is a place of infinite expression and possibility, and we're here at this really slow, dense molasses syrup. Like, here's how we get from here to here. We go, okay, the letter A is first, guys. Number 1 is first, and then A, and then here's B, and there's 2. Well, they're coming, and a lot of us, and people sometimes just wake up, like, really, like, wake up in the morning from a dream, and a dream that might have lasted a very long time, or maybe got what you'd call a download or channeled information, and they're like, oh, this is how the whole thing works. And then you try to explain it to someone. When you're trying to explain the infinite possibility, what the mind is, if you try to explain that, and to someone that is literally in goo, in a thick, like, milky substance, literally around their body, as in their auric field, and inside of their body is their blood, because their blood is their spacecraft. It really is. That's this last couple of videos I was doing on spherocytes, spherocytis, kind of dives into this theory, and I think this might be a good place. It's interesting that it starts here, because while it sounds a little confusing, maybe at first for some people, and a little esoteric, it's really not. When I say that there's 2 types of blood cells, one is spherical and one looks like a UFO, and what happens with the blood inside of you and the pattern of movement outside of you, and how your mind works, because most people's minds are gooey, literally. I mean, in every way, filled with goo, because they've been so dehydrated. So the world, how could you listen to someone like that if there's goo at the beginning of this video? How could you understand what that man is saying if everything is coming into your ears and into your brain in a really slow way? If you were trying to walk through a marshy field, like how would you get that information? It wouldn't get to your brain. It wouldn't function in your brain, because people have become so exacerbatedly, and they've become so dehydrated because they just don't consume water and they don't know how water works to rehydrate the brain, nor their body cells, nor their auric field around them. Because if you, anywhere you go, you're surrounded by water. I mean, oxygen is around you. Hydrogen, oxygen is water. So we have to, like, it's always moist outside. There's never really a zero, there's never really 0% humidity. So even your auric field has something to do with plasma and water. So to slow it down here, because people are like, okay, what are you talking about? Plasma, auric fields, and chakras, and whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, water, the essential source. It's not even the source per se. It's the place that consciousness resides within, which is water. So consciousness is everywhere and at all times, and it's everything. Okay, but people use different words for that. You can call it the overmind, you could call it God, you could call it the soul, you could call it a lot of things. But it uses the template of, and these are the dimensions, just for here, the dimensions are like what's really dense, like water beneath your feet, that's salty water, like in the ocean. And then there's that water that you'd consume that's a little less dense because there's no salt in it. And then there's the oxygen, which kind of sits on top of that. That's kind of in a sense. And the other reference you could use is, oh, the earth beneath your feet, and then the water, and then the air. Those are the three references for densities. And so consciousness, which is everywhere, it plays inside of water. But remember, your body is made of water, at least it should be. But most people's bodies have become so bereft of activity and so removed that the water's been removed, so they become more like earth and more dense. So no wonder they can't move. No wonder they can't hear. No wonder sounds don't make sense. No wonder they can't see. They can't process information. So as you put more water in your body and it starts to actually, literally, physically go up your spine, because that's the more distilled water you put in you, it pressurizes itself, and it goes up your spine and goes into your brain and cleans your brain out. And it cleans out all of the gook, literal gook, and metals, and I mean, think about it. If you had a glass that was 2 feet high, and inside of it was a mixture of substances. It was water and tea, and like, oh, anybody drink a beer, and you got the foam on the top, and all of a sudden, if you just let it sit there, the water is pulled out of it, the alcohol is pulled out of it. It starts to evaporate, and that level goes down, but you'll notice on the sides this kind of filth, this murky kind of film. Now that's what happens in the brain, and the inside of the brain is all of that gunk, and nobody fills it back up with water to clean it off, to get that out of there. So you'd clean that out. And then, then you could see through the glass, because then the water would be in there. So what do you see? If you see a glass with gunk on it, you can't see through the other side. But if you were to clean that gunk off with water, you'd be able to see through it. So in that sense, people's brains need to be rehydrated with water, just as well as their blood does. And getting back to this connection to what would be called the UFO, like type looking blood, which you'd call see, like I was saying, there's two types of, well, not two types, but the reference that people are given is there's, I think the word is erythrocytus and spherocytus, and one means earth and one means sphere, and one looks like a UFO and one looks like a sphere or a planet. Now, interestingly enough, it's not one or the other. To me, it seems that one is just a blown up version, meaning there's something occurring that's blown something up to cause a lot of pressure in it. Now, in your body, if you're full of dense material, if you're full of things that you can't clear out of you, then it's going to be, it's difficult to move. So people that have movement pattern issues are the same that have mental patterning issues. And you go, okay, we're going a little too far here, Zen. Slow down. Simple, obvious. How to clean? Just distilled water. Clean your body. Lemon juice. How would you clean? Like I always try to get to this. how would you clean things? What's a good cleaning solution? Lemon juice. These things will help clean the body, clean the mind, so that way, when you are able to get out of body, whenever you're able to dream. And it's the reason I say this, because I had, remember those dreams that you have, and you're kind of like, oh man, you wake up and you're like, oh, that was such a good dream, but what was it, how, oh man. And then maybe somewhere in the day you'll see something like, oh, that reminded me a little bit of my dream. Man, I don't have it. Like, oh, it was right there. Yeah, those dreams happen often to a lot of people, and that has something to do with like how clogged and sticky the brain is. And by cleaning the brain out, like that becomes a crystal ball. It becomes easy to see, that you can access. And I'm not even gonna get into the words and what they mean, and like where the word memory comes from, and like what water and light has to do with this, but it surely does have to do with the grand populace of all of the inhabitants of Earth. Like how clean, how effervescent, I like that word lately, that their being is. And when you think of the word effervescent, you think of bubbly and a tonic and water. And that really should be, and you think of an alchemist's lab, and what do you always see? You see a liquid and bubbles, and that's what should be happening in the body, and that's what should be happening in the brain too. And to make that happen, for people to have an understanding, and this is in both directions. This comes from the point of reference of people that are kind of like slow and older, and or even that have taken, that eat a lot of heavy dense foods, that eat cooked foods and meats and salts and all of this stuff, to go, okay, there's a reason. This is actually your deity. It's called your diet. Your diet is your deity. It's like there's a reason you can't hear and you can see everything else, and it's because it's literally and I've used that word quite a bit. It's because it's in this, where we're looking at things, in this frame of reference for people, there's too much density in their body, and it needs to be removed. That's all. It's simple. It's a really simple concept. It's difficult to do, because when you walk around and you go to the places that you've been, and you eat, go to the restaurants and you hang out with the people, they're going to be going through these patterns, and those patterns are actually coded into them. And I'm not going to use computer terminology or other terminology, but think of it in the way, if you are walking through the forest, the road, they say the road less traveled. Well, the road traveled is the forest that's been cut down, and that's what's been put into someone's mind. Like if you were to push away some mud, and then that mud were to dry, that would be the track, and that track that is literally in people's brains. There's been a track system in someone's brain. This is not like, there's a tracking device in your mind. Well, no, the tracking device you put in there. See, you've put the tracks in your mind. The track goes from here to there. It's like a train track. And the reason it works that way is because when your mind was full of water, you just did everything. You just were experiencing life like a child. Like, oh, it's everywhere. Just, what's this? What's that? Huh? And then as the water was released from it, the last couple patterns it started to get into, it just started to get stuck in there. And it really became, from the level of an electrical engineer, it became firings in the brain that were from here to here. That other ones got shut off because there was no water. There was no water left in the brain. The only thing that were firing were here's these two, and it just pings back and forth. It goes from this one to this one. And so when people, and this goes into like practical, what's going on in the environment. People go to this restaurant and they order, hey, it's Friday, 5 o'clock. We're gonna meet Billy Bob and Joe over here and eat this steak with the cheese, and we're gonna talk about the week, and it's gonna be the same conversation. And that's what happens. And it's really been a physical, it's physically encoded into their brain, and even to not even get to words like encoding, because it's not. I mean it is, but again, it was put there in the mud in the brain, and the way to get rid of that is to put water in, so it loosens all that up. And then at first it's like, whoa, then it loosens up the mud, and all of a sudden things become brighter, and there's options and possibilities. But it's easy to go back and do the things that you've done, because that's what I've been doing. And so then there's this wide open area where people, you know, this is precipice of like, oh, well, there's so many options now, and that it's like an artist looking at a piece of paper that says, oh, I have so many options here, and that's what a lot of people get to, and they go, oh man, this is a lot of stuff here. What's going on? And that's the awakening, or the process that people go, oh, it's a precipice. I don't know what to do here. It's because it's just like, no, you have infinite possibility. It's like a complete like, whoa, here's all the stuff. What do you want to do? And that's the place that everybody wants to get to, even if they don't know it, even if they don't, they want choices and options. And people would rather not have to, you know, go to the same places and do the same things and eat the same food, the same restaurants, have the same conversations, the same friends, the same time, and they hear that, but they know what that means. See, that's the confusing part. It's like they hear the just garbled up nothingness, but they go, oh, that means this, and they clue it in. I know what that means. I'm sure that means that. And so what we do, what I attempt to do, and I help people from the levels of thinking about it and about physically, like, here, let's get some water in the body, let's get foods in the body that are actually helping, let's clean it out with fibers, let's do all of this, remove this out of the body, get the brain functioning from a place that you can actually hear what someone's saying and decode it for yourself and say, well, do you want to participate in that? And it's such a bright, wonderful, shiny place from there. So hopefully this was a little fun for everyone to listen to, and help decompress the garble and get to the point of having a comprehension for what's going on in this time-space universe, and get you possibilities to get into different time frames, different spaces, different arenas of thought and physicality, and we'll talk soon, everybody. Stay awesome. Do cool stuff.